The next speakers will be from Latvia, and we are going to talk about other databases that exist in Latvia. There are several databases in Estonia, and several databases exist in Latvia. Now I would like to give the floor to Kaspars Veldre, who is going to talk about the state education information system. The floor is yours. My presentation is going to be in Latvian, and let us firstly talk about the information systems that pupils, teachers, and students use in Latvia from the perspective of the ministry. So the State Education Information System, or in short SEIS, exists in Latvia. That includes information on pupils and students and alumni. And then you have links with other information systems, for example, the state examination system, the other systems such as the national education opportunities databases. We have also links with the State Curriculum Center e-platform and other institutions. Apart from these state-run information systems, we also have several education services or systems that are used by pupils, their parents. One such example would be the e-class or e-class portal that is very popular among school administrations and in record keeping regarding pupils. Now, as for the central system, the State Education Information System, the content and the updating is determined by the cabinet regulation that determines the content, regulates competencies. In other words, which authority is responsible for what, who enters which information, and also it lays down updating terms and deadlines that need to be entered when the pupils change or when institutions or staff changes. The deadline for entering is 10 days. It also lays down the authorities that are responsible for entering information in the system. So this SEIS system is available or accessible publicly at the website viis.lv. And one can become acquainted with the educational institution register as well as the academic staff register on this website. If we look closer at what data this SEIS system contains, I would like to draw your attention to the record keeping of education institutions as well as the pupils and students that are included in the register. Further on, groups and classes is high level of detailing up to a specific detail of each student or pupil learning in the specific class or group. And this is one of the reasons why such a system needs to be regulated in cabinet regulations, because they process individual personal data. In gray, you see also the register of students, which is still being developed. And in terms of the state education information system user, mostly these are the Ministry of Education and Science. The law lays down users, which include municipalities. They acquire information on the tariffs or wages of teachers to use for developing payrolls for teachers. And also the system is used by educational institutions to enter data on their represented institutions, and there are other stakeholders who need access to the information. And I'm going to go into that in greater detail in a while. As for the other information that this system includes, it includes the register of pedagogues, in other words, all teachers who work in the Republic of Latvia. It also includes the waging and hours worked by pedagogues. It also includes the register of academic staff. And in the context of today, we also store information in our system on curricula, accreditation sheets, and information regarding this is updated by the Education Quality State Service as well as the Accreditation Center. This is still actually underway because we need to get the legislative into order, and this specifically applies to the pupils and students register. It mostly is planned to include specific information on who is studying in which program, and it is planned to monitor this data for up to 3 years after completing studies. Shortly, in terms of who does the SEIS system serve, well, I would say that it mostly supports the provision of the education process. It includes the broadly recently debated wages of pedagogues, also support for children's supervision services, also including nannies. It keeps records of the children who are not in the education system, mostly related to the secondary system because primary education is mandatory in Latvia. And also it includes coordination, electronic coordination of wages for teachers. Here you can see the level of detailing of information in terms of what is covered regarding persons and where does the information arrive in. What we can see here is that this information stores all data on a person's education, so to speak, path, starting from kindergarten up to the completion of university studies. These educational programs, depending on the case, are entered in the system by the responsible authorities, and in some cases, educational institutions themselves. Further on, support is provided on grouping of personal data, say according to classes, to semesters, to groups, depending on how each educational institution functions. Then the entry of pupils and students is actually up to the institutions themselves. Preschool educational information is entered by the state authorities, whereas starting from the next year, web services will be available because this is mostly related to the fact that higher education institutions have systems in place that store information. Also, we have reports on financial calculations, and we also have state statistic overviews. That information is being fed into. And the second one that I mentioned also includes data on those who have left studies. The reports or overviews also include information on how many children do not go to school, regardless of the fact that they should be at school, and so on. In order to ensure high data quality, the system is interfaced or connected to other systems. And firstly, foremostly, it is the Citizenship and Migration Affairs Board or Authority that has the population register, that runs the population register. And finally, it includes, it also updates information, or in case of erroneous information, you have an opportunity to introduce changes. We also have interconnections with the penalty or penal register run by the Ministry of Interior. This is mostly related to teachers who have been penalized. And then we also have connections with the enterprise register in order to verify the establishment status and the operation status. And then we also have the State Medical Commission for the assessment of health condition and working ability. This is the information that I just mentioned presented in a graphic, and in terms of further developments, we plan to launch cooperation with the State Social Security Agency, also with the State Revenue Services, which need to award tax benefits or alleviances for children if their children study in certain study programs. And another information system that we plan to connect to in the nearest future, because this other system is being introduced right now, is the National Scientific Activity Information System that comprises information on the scientific work, on the intellectual property, on publications, participation in conferences, exhibitions. And since scientific work is mostly carried out by academic staff of our country, which is part of this information system. And also it includes leading researchers from institutions that are not related to higher education institutions. Then we plan to collect this information and connect it to the SEIS system. We also plan that the new system is going to launch work next year, and it will have a public interface section that will include information on scientific institutions, the results of scientific activity, as well as annual reports of scientific institutions. All the rest will not be public, but this is mostly regulated by the legislation, and that will conclude everything that I would like to mention on the state education information system. Thank you, Kaspars. Are there any questions? There is a question. Yes, please, Indra.
I will also put one question. A state education information system is one, the data of which we are using in our qualifications database. And looking from the public side, now, of course, we know how much information this system comprises. And large part of information about institutions of education, about programs and accreditations is available if people know how to press on, to click on a link here, a very small link, and many people don't notice it, and they don't even use this opportunity. How you thought about updating, improving this web page and make it more accessible to people, more user-friendly? Perhaps I will put my two questions as well. For us, who recognize diplomas, we really lack register of diplomas in Latvia. It's a generally accepted practice that diplomas could be checked in a database of Ministry of Education. We can do it in database of Bangladesh and Russia. And there were plans that it would be included in the state education information system. Are there any plans really to produce it? And my next question is, do you have any plans perhaps to present part of information in another language, not only in Latvian? I will start with the easiest question, diploma register. Of course, it should be established, and we are planning to introduce it together with the register of students. However, when looking at the way this draft law is proceeding at the parliament and also the cabinet regulations, we don't know yet how it's going to end and the shape this database would take. So we are planning to introduce it together with the register of students. As soon as the student graduates, immediately information about the diploma awarded to him is input into the system. About the language, in this database, everything is possible, accessible only in Latvian. Any plans to translate into English? I have no information about it. Perhaps my colleagues have information about it. Because I am replacing here one of my colleagues who is on leave. I know that they are still working on the database. Perhaps the visual appearance of the web page could be improved so that the link pressed here would be better understandable to a user. And if you have any specific needs, perhaps you can talk about this with the working group. The working group has members from a number of institutions, and so perhaps part of the content could be translated into English. So we had 3 questions and 3 answers. Yeah, those who asked are satisfied. Mr. Gaigals. In connection with Latvian qualifications database and the register of diplomas, assuming that the majority of diplomas include also qualification. But these documents include not only data proving the qualification. The first question, what are the plans to develop it? And the second question, we just heard that the Ministry of Finance is setting up a database of those persons who are receiving any grant as part of the European Social Fund and linking it with the State Revenue Service and Population Register. What kind of perspectives do you see in the first context and the second context? Both of your questions are quite complicated. Actually, before answering, I should discuss all of this with my colleagues. At this point of time, I'm not really ready to answer. For example, about this plan of the Ministry of Finance, this is the first time I hear about it. Perhaps my other colleagues know more about it, those who work with the system on a daily basis. Maybe they know about it. So perhaps you could get in touch with my colleagues later electronically, and we could provide an answer. So you will be communicating electronically. Fine. I had one question, but I won't be torturing